Following a disclosure that Deputy Prime Minister Sean Richards had not been attending cabinet meetings for weeks, as a matter of principle, Richards has spoken openly on the matter for the first time at a 7th April PAM Town Hall meeting. From Richards' own comments, he has refused to attend cabinet meetings because he believes the Prime Minister is involved with his name being included in a police report for an incident at a nightclub involving the police and another Minister of Government, in which Richards said he was never involved and was not at the scene. After a meeting with the Prime Minister, who also is the Minister of National Security, and a cabinet meeting in which the Commissioner of Police was present, Richards said it was his understanding that his name would be removed from the police report. According to Richards, that was not the case and indicated the Prime Minister was playing an unacceptable role in the matter. Richards spoke of the meeting set up to discuss the matter with the Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister spoke and he gave his side of the story. But when the Prime Minister finished speaking, I gave my side of the story. And I said, Prime Minister, this is what you have not said. That you sent messages to persons saying to persons that you understand that the next Minister of Government was at last lap when this thing happened. Because of course persons knew that Lindsay was there. There was a recording that sounded like John L. And some persons knew that John L. was there. But the Prime Minister telling persons, sending messages, speaking to persons, that the next Minister of Government was at last lap when this thing happened. When I said that in the meeting, the Prime Minister said, how that can be true? He ain't had no conversation with nobody about anything that happened at last lap. And he went on and on and on and on. I saw that is a falsehood. People being malicious, people telling lies on him. And I listened, and as I listened, I laughed to myself. I laughed. And you know why I laughed? Because when he was finished, I said the Prime Minister is being dishonest. The Prime Minister ain't telling the truth. Because at the end of the day, after the past when I spoke, by the end of the day, the person called me back and said to me that the Prime Minister called them and said, how can you breach my confidence in you? And why was he able to tell the person, how can you breach your confidence in me? This said morning when the person told me so, I spoke to the AG about it. The AG's advice was, Sean, you need to go and have a meeting with the Prime Minister about it. I said, okay, AG, I'm going to send the Prime Minister a message. The AG said, don't send him the message. Go and have a meeting with him about it. I said, okay, AG, I take your advice. I didn't get around to having the meeting. But by the end of the day, the Prime Minister knew that I knew that he said to somebody, an ex-Minister of Government was at last lap when this thing happened. Now what is interesting is that the person he spoke to is a media person. Just as I stand up in defense of people in this country, I will stand up when it comes to myself. Some may not like it, but I will defend me. Nobody gonna use my name for political purposes. Not a soul gonna use my name for political purposes, for their narrow, selfish political agenda.
Richards' public statement on the matter comes at a time when coalition partners PAM and CCM are publicly at odds with the PLP Prime Minister over what they say are core issues of trust and his undermining of the Charleston Accord that brought the three political parties together. Glenn Bart reporting for SK Newsline.
The government has to decide at some point to phase out the Citizenship by Investment CBI program, says social activist and former government minister Dwyer Astafan. Mr. Astafan, in an interview with SK Newsline, pointed out that with the tenuous nature of the program and the small size of the St. Kitts and Nevis population, the program over a period of time can impact the socio-development of St. Kitts and Nevis.
We have to decide whether there's going to be a cap on the number of citizenships issued. The reason for that is not at all related to xenophobia. Rather, it is related to the reality that once these folks are granted citizenship, they have the full rights of citizenship. It also means that while they may bring their resources, unless this thing is carefully managed and administered, you can have a problem in terms of continuing, going back to enslavement and colonial times, of the marginalization of local people in terms of economic and social growth opportunities.
The future of CBI programs in the Caribbean has come under scrutiny with the announcement by the European Parliament recently that a proposal was sent to the European Commission to review the Schengen visa waivers for countries within the European Union and by extension other countries that operate a CBI program. Some pundits and government officials in the Eastern Caribbean said an adverse decision on this issue would have major impacts on CBI programs from the Eastern Caribbean and the economies of these countries. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.
This coming Tuesday, 12th April, meet me at Warner Park Cricket Stadium for some CONCACAF Women's World Cup qualifying action. Yes, it's gonna be St. Kitts Nevis versus the United States Virgin Islands. The game kicks off at 4 p.m. Tickets for the stands, $15. On the grounds, it's $10. And children 12 years and under, absolutely free. So get off from work early, grab your national colors, and come give the Sugar Girls the support they need to continue the World Cup journey. Come for the football and enjoy some great entertainment as well. Music by E.K. The Real Right, Sugar Bowl, and a live performance by Mr. Mention. So, this coming Tuesday, 12th April, let's go to the Warner Park Cricket Stadium in our national colors and support the Sugar Girls as they clash with the U.S. Virgin Islands. You better meet me there! Check me and your code, direct me and your code.
The SKN Newsline website now offers you more news. Log on to www.sknnewsline.com for local, regional, and international news. You can also watch the latest newscast and keep abreast with news in sports, all from sknnewsline.com. That's www.sknnewsline.com. News at your fingertips. Nestled between evergreen mountains and the Caribbean Sea on the island of St. Kitts is the Mill House Guest House and Convention Center. With breathtaking views, a rugged, beautiful shoreline, and immaculate manicured gardens make this the perfect location for your holiday, event, or wedding. With a large convention center, apartments with balconies providing stunning views, and a secluded cottage for larger family groups or honeymooning couples looking for some privacy. We have something for everyone. Book your stay at www.millhouseskn.com or visit our Facebook page, the Mill House Guest House and Convention Center, an oasis of tranquility.
The Nevis Island Administration, NIA, and the Nevis Electricity Company, NEVLEC, are looking at measures that can be implemented to minimize the impact of rising fuel costs on consumers. Premier Mark Brantley, NIA's minister responsible for public utilities and energy, said the method now being used to calculate the fuel surcharge on electricity is proving to be cost-effective for consumers. He pointed out, however, that if the price of fuel continues to rise, it may result in an increase in electricity tariffs.
I will not shy away from it. If gas prices start to increase, we must look at increased electricity, because we have the fuel surcharge where we pass on the increases to our people. And so we continue to encourage our people to conserve as much as they can, and to look at what is happening globally and seek to control how much they consume in terms of electricity. So some people leave on the lights all night, they leave on the AC running, things like that, that they try their best to control that. We, from the government's point of view, have been using an average. I believe we're doing a 6-month average, rather than each time we get a fuel shipment, we pass on the full cost. And by doing the 6-month average, we've been trying to buffer the impact. But increased prices, gas prices, oil prices generally lead to increase in electricity and transportation costs, etc.
In the face of rising fuel costs, NEVLEC is also encouraging consumers to conserve as much energy as possible to avoid high energy bills. Long-term pursuits include the development of new renewable energy sources for electricity, with emphasis on geothermal, wind, and solar power projects. I am Jacinthia Tishiro for SKN Newsline.
The St. Kitts and Nevis Olympic Committee headquarters was officially opened 7th April with representatives from Pan Am Sports and the government of St. Kitts and Nevis in attendance. Visiting St. Kitts and Nevis for the occasion was Pan Am Sports President Nevin Illick and his team. SKN Olympic Committee President Alfonso Bridgewater and Pan Am Sports President Illick cut the ceremonial ribbon to officially open the SKN Olympic Committee headquarters, following remarks from several officials.
The intervention by Pan Am Sports, and more particularly the role of President Nevin in the margin of the process, deserves many accolades. The intervention was an extremely timely and accessible physical infrastructural development project lifeline, tailored to the needs of respective NOCs, as expressed and agreed upon through a series of candid and critical one-on-one encounters between NOC leadership and the Pan Am Sports President and Secretary General.
On behalf of the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, and my own behalf, not just as Minister of Sport, but as I dare say, a former athlete, I commit our support to you, President Bridgewater, to your team, and to the local Olympic Committee. We look forward to working with you going forward and to ensure that this is indeed a step in the right direction in the development of sports in St. Kitts and Nevis and development of our people in general. God bless you, congratulations, and keep up the good work.
And in here to have this new house, this new building for all the Olympic family, you have to be proud. It's difficult to do it, but you are doing. And you know what is important? When Alfonso called me, he said, my budget is, this is the budget, and we need part from you. And we will find, in my country, I will find the rest of the resources. And this is fantastic because you are doing a great effort. All the community is collaborating with this fantastic, and this is very good.
The current opening of the headquarters represents the completion of the first of a two-phase development of the St. Kitts and Nevis Olympic Committee's headquarters at Taylor's Range, Pasteur. Glenn Bart reporting for SKN Newsline.
Cabinet says it lifted the requirement at its meeting Wednesday following talks with hotel stakeholders who had previously asked the government to keep the measure in place.
They were of the view that the maintenance of those protocols gave them a marketing advantage in the sense that Antigua would have been perceived as a more safe environment, and for the time being it had acted as a point of attraction for them. However, the Minister of Tourism did indicate yesterday that they are now prepared to work along with the government and relax those conditions.
The government had earlier removed the requirement for the country's nationals and residents, but has now lifted it for all incoming travelers. Nonetheless, travelers might want to keep their vaccination certificates close by, since unvaccinated passengers must still present a negative PCR COVID test on arrival. This test must be taken within 4 days of boarding their flight. In the meantime, Minister Nicholas says the government is keeping a watchful eye on emerging COVID strains, including the latest Omicron subvariant XE.
We keep looking at it, but we have not yet seen any inflection in the number of persons who are reporting being affected, and certainly there's no evidence yet that that particular strain is unsure. Of course, we did note yesterday that there was a significant spike in the number of infections in neighboring Barbados. And as you know, the local saying goes, when your neighbor house is on fire, you wet yours.
But he says if Antigua and Barbuda does see an increase in cases, it will not shut down the economy or reintroduce any other drastic measures.
If it is necessary for us to reintroduce the levels of mask wearing or any of those other well-utilized mechanisms, because we have seen another uptick in the types of infection in a new variant, certainly we will do that. But let's be clear, except it becomes a real deadly virus in which we have to take significant steps, it is likely that we will have a light touch.
Jamie J. Roche, ABS News.
We know who you are. Prime Minister Andrew Holness is warning to persons involved in the illegal gun trade. Now, he was speaking today at a groundbreaking ceremony for the construction of the Little London police station in Westmoreland. Anthony Lugg reports.
Too many illegal guns are coming through our legal ports.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness addressing issues of national security in Westmoreland on Thursday. Between January 1 and March 31, the police seized 223 legal firearms. That's a 14% increase over the 195 seized during the same period last year. But despite the success, concerns continue to grow about who's responsible for bringing illegal firearms into the country.
We know the people who are doing it. Yes, write that statement down. We know. But we're not going to go after one little person. Our strategy is to take down networks.
80% of Jamaica's homicides are committed by the gun. And Mr. Holness insists a strategy is being crafted to remove the profit out of crime.
We want to get the customs officer that is facilitating the gun coming through the port. We want to get the man that works in the bank that is allowing the currency to be transferred either into the country or out of the country. We want to get the person who is hiding the guns.
The Joint Anti-Gang Task Force, which was recently launched, has made several arrests and seizures since it was rolled out in February. Mr. Holness says much more focus is being given to intelligence and evidence gathering.
For the parish of Westmoreland, I appeal to the people, cooperate with your security forces. The people who we have put here to lead the security forces, they have special directions. Those who are the bad apples, they will be moved. And they will be prosecuted when we have the evidence on them.
Anthony Lugg, TBJ News.
We're going to begin this news hour in the east of Ukraine, where at least 30 people have been killed in a rocket attack. Ukrainian officials say Russia struck a train station in the city of Kramatorsk. An evacuation effort was underway when 2 rockets hit the station. More than 100 people were wounded. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky described Russia as an evil with no limits after the attack. Donetsk separatists have described it as Ukrainian provocation. Well, let's speak to Asad Beg now, who's in Kharkiv for us. Let's start with this attack on the train station. What more do we know about it, Asad?
Well, we know that for the last 5 days, the regional governor has been telling people not to wait and to leave Kramatorsk. Now, it is about 200 kilometers away from here. It's in the east of the country. Now, people were flocking to that train station, wanting to evacuate to safer parts of the country. Now, some of the latest information that we have from the regional administration is that the preliminary figures at the moment are 27 dead, including 2 children and over 30 injured. Now, they've said that is preliminary, that could change, and the pictures that we've been seeing are absolutely harrowing, people strewn across the floor outside that train station. But people are still wanting to leave because the fear is that Russia is mounting or getting ready for a new offensive, and the east of the country will be a part of that. That's where they will be concentrating. So it is a very, very tragic scene that we're seeing. Lots of pictures and video that we've been seeing. But those people still want to leave. The advice from the governor and the officials have been to leave that area to safer parts of the country.
You're in Kharkiv, as I mentioned, and Kharkiv has been seeing constant shelling, certainly for the last few hours. Just tell us what's been happening there.
Well, this morning we've been hearing constant shelling and artillery fire. We've heard anti-aircraft fire. We heard an aircraft above and saw it drop a bomb also this morning. But the administration here says over the last 24 hours there's been 48 incidents, including a shell hitting a hospital. Now, they say that 15 people have been injured. There's intense fighting taking place southeast of Kharkiv in a city called Izium, where the Russians have control of that. And it seems like there is a lot of activity taking place all night and all day. We're hearing the guns going off every few minutes, and that's just the norm here currently. But as I said, the Russians have said that they will start their new phase where they want to concentrate on the east of the country, and the fear is that things here in Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city, could get worse.
Asad, thank you very much indeed. Asad Beg talking to us from Kharkiv. Let's go to Dorsa Jabari, who's in Moscow for us. I mentioned before, the Donetsk separatists have been saying that this attack on the train station at Kramatorsk, they're describing it as a Ukrainian provocation. What's Moscow saying to all of this?
Well, we've been hearing from the Russian defense minister here, who say that they reject the claims that Kiev is making, that they're responsible for this attack. According to the Russian defense ministry, the Tochka-U missile that was used in this attack is something that is commonly used by the Ukrainian military, and the Russians had no activity in that area on Friday, April 8th. And they also highlight the fact that this is the same kind of missile that was used on a previous attack on March 14th in the city of Donetsk that killed 17 people in eastern Ukraine. They are saying that this is yet another provocation by the part of the Ukrainian military to try and engage the Russians in that area. We also want to highlight that this is the region that the Russians have said they want to concentrate the second phase of their so-called special military operation in, that is the eastern part of Ukraine. According to Russian officials, earlier in March, during those talks in Istanbul, they said that they had completed phase 1 and they were going to withdraw their troops from around the Ukrainian capital, Kiev, and they're going to focus on their operation in the eastern part of Ukraine. Of course, this is where it all started. That is in the Donetsk and Lugansk region, where there are Russian-backed separatist groups that are trying to retake what they claim is rightfully their land, which is part of Ukraine at the moment. And the fighting that has been going on there is what the Russian military is involved with.
Dorsa, thank you very much indeed. Dorsa Jabari talking to us from Moscow.
The first ever St. Kitts and Nevis Football Association SKNFA football security training opened on Thursday at the police training complex in Bastyr. This training is designed to prepare enlisted persons to provide security services at football venues in accordance with international standards. Carlton Pinney, an executive member of the SKNFA in charge of security, explained the concept and purpose of the training exercise.
Today we made history, the first ever workshop for security. And in trying to raising the standard is why this course came about. This afternoon I'm very pleased with all the participants that are here as we try to raise the standard by presenting and sharpening the skill of the security team that governs and keep us safe at the park and at every game and every activity that we do have. I must admit that each participant here going through this 4-day workshop will learn and be sharpened. We'll be covering several topics, as was mentioned before by our General Secretary, in sharpening their skill in dealing with the patrons and keeping us safe.
General Secretary of the SKNFA, Tichelle McLean, stressed that this training exercise is historic and is part of raising the standard of football security in St. Kitts and Nevis.
We're trying to set the standard when it comes to safety, because safety is very important. You hold the lives of persons in your hand. You basically are the mediators when it comes to incidents or issues between personnel. You keep order when it comes to any environment. And as such, you need to know what governs you, what secures you, what empowers you, and what limits you. As such, we've reached out to our counterparts and our colleagues across the region with reference to implementing a safety policy in going forward. Now, Ms. Donnelly Liebert, I don't know how many of you are aware, is a FIFA certified security officer. And that goes a long way. From a small island of St. Kitts and Nevis, one of your own represents us at that level when it comes to safety. Now, she's going to be working along with SKNFA to ensure that we have a policy in place, a policy that outlines safety when it comes and security when it comes to St. Kitts and Nevis.
The training will be conducted for 4 days and end on Sunday. Participants comprise of police and defense force officers and civilian, and is led by FIFA certified security officer Donnelly Liebert Shiverton, who is also a police officer.
Welcome to the SKN Newsline Weather Report. I am Janil Boone. Here is a look at the 4-day forecast for St. Kitts and Nevis. For a more detailed weather report, visit our website at www.sknnewsline.com.